All right, Shalom, Watawabi Wam. All right, welcome back to another lesson. Giving all glory and praise and honor that's due to Yahweh Shem, Yahweh Shabbat Shem, Rachak Kodash, and double honors to the apostles, the elders, a great millstone. Peace and mercy and grace to the household of faith. Welcome back to another lesson, man. I was reading Hebrews, the 10th chapter, and I just wanted to kind of speak on some of the verses because they kind of back up, and validate what we teach. A lot of what people have done with the Bible is witchcraft and deceit. And the narratives placed around it, and what's the Bible called strongholds. They're being overthrown in these last days and times because the truth is, standing tall. Which had been so long without fruit shall be declared. So it's like you read these things and it's like you read them now with in your right mind. You're like, well, wait a minute. If this is that, then what is that? Here it is right here. And I'm just reading Hebrews the 10th chapter. And, I just want to point out some things because people will say, oh, that's the New Testament. Oh, that's the Old Testament. Well, it's all the same because the Lord came to value in the book. So I guess we can start there because I ain't even plan on making that point. But that's a good point since we right here anyway, because I want to start at verse 9, but I'm going to start at 7. It says, then said I, lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me to do thy will, O God. Now, what's being discussed here? Because this is actually a quote from Psalms, the 40th chapter, verse 7, if I'm not mistaken, right? This is in the spirit. This is the Messiah speaking in the spirit, right? I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me. Because when you look at the whole book of the Bible, all right, everything that we have today known as the Bible, it's all about really the Messiah, the Most High, of course, is the Most High. Everything goes back to him. But really, when you look at the volume of the book, it's all about Yahushua. In the beginning was the Word, right? You read John, the first chapter in verse 14, it tell you the Word was made flesh. But it does say in the beginning was the Word. Genesis, the first chapter, right? In the beginning was Yahushua, because Yahushua is the only begotten Son of the Most High, the first and only Spirit that was created directly by the Most High. And then through his only begotten Son, everything else was created. And this is why Yahushua refers to himself as the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Right? And when you read all the prophecies and going all the way back to Genesis, prophesying of Shiloh coming, it's talking about Yahushua. When you read about Melchizedek and tithes, right? When you read about, you go in Numbers and the Numbers of 24th chapter, as a vision of Yahushua. If I'm not mistaken, it was dealing with those Moabites. But you read, all the prophets, Isaiah, Ezra, all of these men, it's leading up and speaking about Yahushua, right? So the book is written of him, right? It says, above when he said sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings and offering for sin thou wouldest not, neither had his pleasure therein, which are offered by the law. Right. Like I tell you in 1 Samuel, that the Most High said that he didn't take pleasure in sacrifice. He just rather you not break the law. Right. It's like, okay, the sacrifice is okay. This is like an atonement. This is this is you making up, but really I'd rather you just not sin. Right. So verse 9, it says, then said he, lo, I come to do thy will, O God. He taketh away the first that he may establish the second. Right, so he took away the first, covenant, so he can establish the second covenant, which a covenant is an agreement. Right, an agreement, a contract, a pledge. So if you look at the account of the first covenant, which is Exodus, the 24th chapter, which is between Moses and the children of Israel and the Most High, okay, take away the first and establish what? The second covenant with who? The children of Israel. The children of Israel, which are still here today. Because even when you look at the Apostle James, he was still addressing the children of Israel. James 1:1, James, a servant of the Most High and of our Lord, Yahushua Mashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting the 12 tribes. So even during the time of the disciples, it was still about the 12 tribes. Even when you deal with Apostle Paul, right? He's still talking about his, his nation. Solicitude for Israel. I say the truth in my Mashiach, I lie not. My conscience also bearing witness in the Holy Spirit that I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart. For I wish that myself were accursed from Mashiach. For my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites. You see? So to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants. So the covenants, the first and the second covenant, all the agreements and covenants, they pertain to the Israelites. And the giving of the law and the service of the Most High and the promises, whose are the fathers and of whom as concerning the flesh, Yahushua came. So the Messiah, who the world calls Jesus Christ, came for the Israelites. This is right here in the New Testament. And it's like, how the hell did we miss this? Hebrews 10, or how the hell did, but see, we know that the Most High deal with delusions and, those type of things, but, in the flesh, it's like, damn, how you miss this? How do you glance over this? It's right here. Hebrews 10 and, okay, so then he established the second. In 10, it says, by the which will we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Yahushua once for all. Now, let's stop here. Because, an antagonist to what I'm saying will say, well, there it is. It says that Jesus Christ was offered for all. But all of who? It's all of Israel. Because we just established that, Paul established that Yahushua, Jesus the Christ, came for Israel. He came in the flesh. He came for Israel. So his offering was for Israel. And it ain't no spiritual Israel. It was to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. That's what this is pertaining to. And it's right here. Right? 11, and every priest standeth daily ministering and offering oftentimes the same sacrifices which can never take away sins. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down on the right hand of God. Right. So you can because before you had the priesthood, your priest was always the mediator, and you got your Day of Atonements and matter of fact, let's get. So, like I was mentioning about the priests, and you'd have your offering. So you got your unintentional sins, where if someone unintentionally broke a commandment, they would bring a sin offering, like a bull, a goat, lamb, or bird, depending on their status and wealth. The priest would perform a ritual to atone for the person's sin, and the person would be forgiven. Intentional or high-handed sins. So that's pretty much the point. So I'm just dealing with unintentional sins, right? So you have the priest that would do the rituals to atone for the person's sin. So, but you have Yahushua, who's literally acting as a priest. That's why he's referred to as a high priest, because he pretty much stepped into the role of what the priest would do. So he stepped into the mediator role and became. As a matter of fact, it goes down and it refers to him as a high priest. But yeah, this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, because again, that was the job of the Levites. But now the order, that was under the Aaronic priesthood, the order of Aaron, the descendants of Levites. But now we're under the order of Melchizedek. It says, but this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down on the right hand of Most High, from henceforth expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. So wait a minute. If he died and sacrificed for all people, Christian narrative, if that was the case, then who the hell are his enemies? Who are his enemies then? from henceforth expecting. So basically, he's waiting at at the right hand of the Most High. He's in the heavens in the spirit world, waiting to come back to earth and make his enemies his footstool. But he died for everybody though. So if he did die for everybody, then who the fuck is the enemies then? It goes to tell you that there are still enemies and he didn't die for everybody. It says, for by one offering he have perfected forever them that are sanctified. Which sanctified goes into separation. So that goes to show you there's a separation here. It's not everybody. Okay, and then it goes on to talk about he quoting the new covenant of Jeremiah 31. So there you go, having a high priest. So it says, in having a high priest over the house of God. So yeah, and it's talking about Yahushua. See, I'm gonna read that. Hebrews 10:19 says, having therefore, brethren, boldness to enter into the holiest by the blood of Yahushua, by a new and living way which he have consecrated for us through the veil, that is to say, his flesh, and having a high priest over the house of the Most High. Right. And that's something I was looking at. Excuse me. I've been meaning to go into this. Because he was made a high priest. So the high priest and the chief priest were both part of the religious leadership in ancient Israel, especially during the Second Temple. But they held different roles and ranks. The top religious leader in Israel was the high priest. Man, I went into this in a lesson. I showed it just recently. There was only one high priest at a time. One high priest. Okay. It's interesting that the Lord is referred to as the high priest. And then you got like Eleazar referring to himself as the chief priest. And I think the chief priests were the ones that were responsible for turning over Yahushua, that whole setup. So oversaw all the priestly functions, especially the Day of Atonement, rituals. He was the only one allowed to enter the Holy of Holies. Wore special garments like the breastplate with 12 stones, the ephod and the turban, acted as a mediator between the Most High and people in a very unique way. During the time of Yahushua, this position held both religious and political influence under Roman rule. Chief priests are a group or category of senior priests who held important roles, especially in the temple, included former high priests, members of powerful priestly families, and those overseeing temple operations. Often worked closely with the high priest, but were not at the top of the hierarchy. In the New Testament, they often appear as a group of leaders. For example, chief priests and elders involved in political and religious decisions. Right. And they made that political and religious decision to turn over the Lord, the true high priest. They turned him over. So, yeah, man, this is just a little Hebrews 10 I was reading, and I was reading this little portion here. And I said, well, wait a minute. It say right here that he got enemies. Who are his enemies if he died for everyone? Because it says, it's for the sins of all, but who? Right, once by the which was sanctified through the offering of the body, Yahushua once. Right, and again, sanctified is separated. So who's the separate ones? Who's been separated through the offering of the body of Yahushua? Really, Israel from everyone, but really, not Israel. Israel together as a collective, of course. He came for for Israel as a collective, but really the sanctification is the elect, which are the ones that were handpicked and chosen, to believe and to be covered by the blood of the Lamb. So, I just wanted to read that. Might do a little bit more of this book though, but anyway. Pray that was edifying lesson. Giving all glory and praise and honor that's due to Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Until next time.